Welcome to Conversations. Welcome to Conversations. I'm Muqtedar Khan, and today I'm going to talk to you about a development in the United States, which is quite fascinating. That there seems to be a division between America firsters and Israeli firsters in the Trump administration. So we are seeing a contest between those who always want to place Israeli interest way ahead of the United States. I mean, support for Israel is taken for granted. So if you look at all the articles that are being published in the Wall Street Journal, in Bloomberg, in Washington Post, in Newsweek, there seems to be a kind of paranoia among Israeli supporters in the United States that Donald Trump is abandoning Israel and he has changed his entire Middle East policy. Even there are articles in the Israeli media which seem to be expressing the idea that Bibi Netanyahu is deeply frustrated with Donald Trump because he's saying pro Israel things, but he's not doing pro Israeli his actions are not consistent with his pro-Israeli rhetoric. So there is a lot of frustration in Israel. I don't know what Netanyahu has to complain. There's nothing that he wants to do that Donald Trump has stopped him from doing, except one or two things, and I will highlight what those one or two things are. So the chatter on in social media and on other YouTube channels who watch the Israeli politics or the Israeli Arab politics much more closely than I do, the chatter has been that there seems to be a kind of a division taking place between or a divergence of interests between Netanyahu and Donald Trump, and it is also kind of suggested that there's something personal going on, and that from that moment where Netanyahu and Michael Waltz, the former national security advisor of the United States, were colluding behind Donald Trump's back and trying to manipulate him and the United States into fighting a war on behalf of Israel against Iran. So I mean, it is now public knowledge that the reason why Michael Waltz was fired as national security advisor of the United States was not because of the signal gate where he accidentally invited and the Atlantic reporter Goldberg to be on part of signal discussions which were dealing with U.S. targeting of Houthis and U.S. strikes on Houthis. But actually, Donald Trump was very upset that he was collaborating and coordinating very closely with Netanyahu, again on signal, on phone, on planning airstrikes against Iran, major airstrikes against Iran's nuclear facilities. So Donald Trump was really, really upset that Michael Waltz was plotting this, and so he fired him as a national security advisor and then sent him off, literally banished him to an institution that he really does not care about, and that is the United Nations organization. I will make a brief presentation about what is really going on between these two individuals and the tensions inside the Donald Trump administration about how, to what extent should U.S. interests be subordinated to the interests of Israel. And then maybe at the end of it, I will take a few questions from those of you who are watching live. So thank you for watching. So the first instance that there was something unhappy going on was when Donald Trump, in the presence of Netanyahu's last visit, Netanyahu came to the United States with the hope of starting a war with Iran and soliciting the United States full support, not just full support, but he wanted United States to be part of the invasion or the bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities. And while they were sitting together there, right there, Donald Trump made this announcement that he was going to basically take over Gaza and convert Gaza into a Riviera, like the French Riviera, make it a huge playground for playboys or whatever Trump wanted to do. But basically, Trump changed the topic right away, right there in public in the meeting, and he caught Netanyahu blindsided. So Netanyahu came here with the hope of starting a war with Iran and was hoping that the war will allow him to stay in office indefinitely. But he was completely disappointed for two or three reasons. One, that an American president has dared to make a Middle East foreign policy decision without consulting with Israel or without taking Israeli permission or without letting Netanyahu know. So that was, if you listen to some of the pro-Israeli voices in the United States, they seem to be shocked that America is making decisions about America's foreign policy without consulting with Israel or without taking Israeli interest into consideration. So for those of us who have been studying American foreign policy in the Middle East for a long time, we realized that over a period of time, especially because of Joe Biden, who had no ironclad commitment to anything else. He did not have an ironclad commitment to American students or to Medicare or to Social Security or anything else. He had only ironclad commitment to Israel. So this is the kind of American precedent, America second, Israel first. That's the kind of presidents and foreign policy establishment, the pro-Israeli lobby in this country, which is enormously powerful with a lot of money and controls both political parties, would like to have. I mean, their ideal president is Joe Biden, who will do all the bidings of Netanyahu. Will go and hug him and let him do whatever he wanted. But Donald Trump surprised Netanyahu by doing two things: by not declaring a war on Iran and then changing the topic. Then the second thing that happened was he started in nuclear talks with Iran. This is again another dividing line between Israel and the United States. And then there are those in the Trump administration who are Israel firsters, including Marco Rubio, and then the ambassador to Israel, Huckabee. So these guys were all blindsided by this another idea that Donald Trump wanted to not only negotiate with Iran, the negotiations have started without consultation with Israel. And it increasingly looks like that the deal that they are heading towards uh, so is not what Israel wants. Israel wants a Libya-like model with zero nuclear capabilities in Iran, completely devastation of whatever it has. But the United States under Donald Trump right now has reduced the expectations from the Iranian side to basically no weaponization. So no weapons program, no nuclear arms program, but the civilian program will go ahead. Israel wants the civilian program to be destroyed, and Donald Trump is ready to allow the civilian nuclear program of Iran. So that is the second thing, and it appears clearly from the way the negotiations are going that if Iran does ultimately sign, Iran would be very stupid not to make a deal with Donald Trump. I can tell you that, because the next, if Democrats come next, then they will be like Joe Biden. They will promise to restore JCPOA, but they will not do that. They will basically take orders from Tel Aviv, regardless of who is in power in Israel. So this is the best chance Iran has of getting a genuine deal, and maybe a deal that could be even okayed in the Senate. So not just an executive order, but perhaps a treaty. So Iran should pursue a deal with Donald Trump. They're not going to get better terms because Netanyahu will not allow it. So it looks as if the deal that might end up is going to look like the JCPOA of 2015, which Donald Trump himself had canceled. The only difference is that after 2015, Iran became very powerful and was able to destabilize the Middle East and make the Arab countries very nervous with Hezbollah and Hamas and Houthis and other proxies. But now all those proxies have been damaged and defeated and diminished in their capacity by Israel in the last 1.5 years. So what Iran was doing through its proxies as a foreign policy is not that big a problem now for the United States as it was for Obama and Biden. So the second issue really here is the problem of the dispute between the terms of conditions under which the US is negotiating with Iran, which has made Israel very unhappy. The third problem that is going on is that I think that Netanyahu's, I think Michael Walls was basically Netanyahu's man inside the Trump administration. He's like texting him constantly, letting Netanyahu know what's the hell's going on. I I think that if a person had done what Michael Walls did, with any other country. If we catch Tulsi Gabbard exchanging text messages with Prime Minister Modi or Dr. Jaishankar about US foreign policy, she could be accused of being a spy of a foreign country, and she could go to jail for that. But with Israel, you get rewarded. You become the ambassador to the United Nations for the rest of his life. Now, Michael Waltz will be addressed as ambassador, and he got that reward because he was coordinating on his cell phone with Netanyahu about American foreign policy. So I think that this has really upset Donald Trump a lot, and he started moving in. And then Donald Trump makes an agreement with the Houthis. Now, this is a very interesting development because first he spent $1 billion attacking the Houthis. And if you look at the leak that happened from the Signal Gate, and if you read the whole article in Atlantic Monthly, what was interesting was J.D. Vance's position. And he was wondering, why are we attacking Houthis? Because it's not in our interest. The trade that was affected by the violence from the Houthis was very little to the US. The countries which were affected by Houthis' targeting of trade were Europeans primarily, and then Israel. So Houthis was not doing any damage to the United States. It was hurting European economy and Israel. And J.D. Vance said that very clearly. They said, like, why are we doing this? Let the Europeans handle it because it's there in their interest. But Hexet, I guess he wanted to be the Secretary of Defense, wanted to act tough and look tough, I guess. So they went ahead with that. But after that, the US lost 3 jet fighters, nearly worth 100 million each. Apparently, the entire episode cost $1 billion to them. And Donald Trump then decides to make an agreement with Houthis. But the agreement was, again, something which was done without consulting with the Israelis and without subordinating US interests to Israel's interests. And to such an extent that uh, Houthis have agreed not to target US interests and US ships, and the US has decided that it will not bomb Houthis or Yemen or anywhere else around them. But this agreement with the US, this so called ceasefire between the US and Houthis, does not include that Houthis will not target Israel, will not target Israeli interests. And very recently, they did try to hit Tel Aviv with a missile, which actually went through. So, in that sense, there's another reason why the Israeli prime minister and the Israeli I don't know what to call them except Israel fusters in the American establishment are deeply concerned that suddenly the United States in the last few weeks has started making decisions which are not exactly in the interest of Israel, and they are in the interest of the US. I mean, how dare an American president make decisions which are in the interest of the United States? That's not why Muriel Adelson gave him $100 million. That is not why billionaires who are also more pro-Israel are gave Donald Trump billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars during the campaign. So, but even though Trump did reward them in a huge way, every major foreign policy person that he appointed is a pro-Israel, very strong advocate of Israel. Marco Rubio, whether you take him, or Mike Huckabee, who's the U.S. ambassador to Israel, or Michael Waltz, who was the national security advisor. These are all very pro. In fact, Michael Waltz was also a very pro-India person. He was the head of the Indian caucus in the Congress. So the Houthis issue was another thing. So why is Donald Trump upset about this whole Israeli thing? It's because that he wanted a ceasefire in Gaza, and Israel broke the ceasefire in Gaza. And then he's gone on a killing spree. Basically, every day, Netanyahu kills 50 to 70 Palestinians, many of them women and children. And he does not want any peace. He does not want to have any resolution to this, does not want to talk about the two-state resolution. In fact, when Donald Trump's trip began to Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar, there was lots of articles in the Israeli media which were saying that, oh, Donald Trump is going to announce a Palestinian state, and they were trying to create panic about the independence that Donald Trump was showing. And they also quite afraid that he might make concessions to Saudi Arabia without normalizing relations with Israel. So there is this panic in among the pro-Israeli advocates that Donald Trump is now just gone off the reservation. He is no more under control. He's doing things that he thinks are in the interest of America. How dare he do that? He should be doing things which are in the interest of Israel. That's why we have an American president, isn't it? So this is the whole story going on. So Trump was unhappy with the way Netanyahu is handling Gaza. He was also probably very ticked off with the way Netanyahu was manipulating his own staff members. And therefore, now you see suddenly people like Mike Huckabee making statements where they seem to look tough on Israel. For example, Mike Huckabee, the US ambassador to Israel, who has been a lifelong advocate of Israel, coming out and saying that America and Trump does not need to take Netanyahu's permission to make a deal with the Houthis. And then, of course, they go on to say that Trump is the best friend Israel has ever had in its life, which is in a way true. He suspended foreign aid to everybody but gave Israel aid. He's already given about $4 to $5 billion since he became president. And he has given Israel complete freedom to do whatever it wants to do in Gaza, even though it's contradictory to Trump's own plan in Gaza. And he has simply suspended the Bill of Rights when it comes to people in America who want to advocate for Palestinian rights. They're trying to suspend habeas corpus in the United States to go after anybody who criticizes Israel or advocates for Palestinian rights to such an extent that Marco Rubio does not even talk about Gazans or Palestinians. To him, they are all Hamas. They are all Hamas. Anybody who criticizes Israel is just Hamas. I mean, there's no independent recognition that there are Palestinians or Gazans or West Bankers or American citizens who are critical of US foreign policy. I mean, I think he thinks of Bernie Sanders also perhaps as Hamas. So these guys are Trump has done a lot of things for Israel. He's destroying Harvard and Columbia to protect Israeli violence from criticism in Gaza. So he's destroying American assets. Some of the greatest things that America has is great universities are now being completely dismantled because they are a threat to Israeli policies, and they might change public opinion. Already public opinion in the US has changed significantly. Now a vast majority of Americans, I think, according to the latest Pew study, are critical of Israel. Only one-third Republicans, but nearly 60% plus Democrats are critical of Israel. So these universities, professors, academics, media are changing how Israel is viewed, and that is beginning to panic among Israel firsters and among Israelis as well as Netanyahu himself. So these are some of the things that are worrying, that Trump is making deals with Iran, with Houthis, and now with Saudi Arabia without subordinating American national interests to Israeli and Zionist interests in the Middle East. And so that's why there seems to be a growing tension between Israel firsters and America firsters. They never thought that there would be an America first foreign policy ever in this country. So we will see what happens, because what this should have done really is that the Republicans and the Democratic elite, they are so sold out to the Israeli lobby in this country that they refuse to discuss what legitimate interests of the Israelis that we need to protect and what interests of Israelis or policies of Israel we should not. If Israel breaks international law and makes settlements to undermine the possibility of a two-state solution, the US should not support that. If Israeli security is threatened, then yes, the US should support it. It's an ally. And a lot of Americans care about Israel for various reasons, cultural, religious, etc. So we need to have a discussion about that. But what the Israelis want is no discussion about that at all. They just want the US to simply support Israel no matter what Israel does. So Trump is also not triggering that. So Trump is basically saying rhetorically whatever Israeli lobby wants him to say, but his actions are more America first. His rhetoric is more Israel first. So that is an interesting development. In fact, this particular trip of Donald Trump's to the Middle East, where he's gone to the three rich Muslim countries, Donald Trump may ban Muslims, but he does not want to ban Muslim money. This is the second time that the first trip made by Donald Trump, international trip, is to Saudi Arabia, not to UK, not to Europe, not to India, to Saudi Arabia. And the second trip is again a Muslim country, United Arab Emirates, and then now Qatar. And in all of these trips, this trip, for example, the Israelis tried very hard to tell Trump to stop in Israel on the way back. At least, I mean, like Bill Clinton was pressured to stop in Pakistan very briefly on his way back from India. There was a lot of lobbying very hard here in the US to get Trump to either go to Israel first and then go to the Middle East, or on the way back to stop in Israel. But Trump has refused to do that. And there are lots of small things also that are going on which are creating this divergence between the two. So, for example, Donald Trump and his envoy Steve Witkoff, through direct negotiations with Hamas, managed to get the last of the hostages who has dual citizenship, both Israeli as well as an American. So the last American hostage that Hamas has taken was released on the day Donald Trump reached. So there are a lot of symbolic stuff going on, and apparently that particular hostage is not interested in meeting with Netanyahu, and he is more interested in meeting with Donald Trump, and might be reaching Qatar today to meet Donald Trump in Qatar. So these are all symbolic gestures that Donald Trump is making to signal that there is a rift with Israel. Of course, there will be a lot of pressure. I can tell you there will be no discussions about what should be the legitimate interest that the US should protect and should not protect, etc. What is going to happen is there will be a lot of pressure on actually taming Donald Trump. And I can tell you that from within his party and from the Democratic Party, Donald Trump is going to get more pressure to back off from stopping support to Israel than from all this nasty stuff he's getting for violating America's constitution, for all the stuff, horrible stuff they're doing with immigrants, etc. So we will see what happens with this. Will Donald Trump be successful in pursuing an America First foreign policy in the Middle East as he wants to? He wants to make this about transactions. He wants to make it about investments. He's already signed a $142 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. He's hoping to get close to $1 trillion worth of investments from sovereign wealth funds in the region. So what it does is, with all these investments, it creates an interdependence where those countries will also have leverage over the US, and the US will also have more leverage over those countries because of the investments from those countries. So we will see what happens. But what is clear at the moment is that Donald Trump and Netanyahu are not getting along. And so Donald Trump is taking steps forward, which are placing American interest above the interests of Israel, which is very unusual for everybody in the world. So I hope that you found this discussion interesting and my commentary interesting. So please subscribe to Khanversations, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. And for those of you who will be watching this replay, thank you for watching. And those of you who have been here watching this live, I will be now happy to take your questions going forward. There is a question from Tahir Hassan Salam Janab from Pakistan. Wa alaikum salam. Rohit, hello sir. Do you think there is a problem between Pentagon and White House? Pentagon not liking today's developments. We will see. I mean, there is lots of problems between the Pentagon as well as their own leader, the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. So yes, it's a very deep state, the Pentagon and some of these agencies. So it is going to take a little while before Donald Trump is able to make all these agencies completely in alignment with his foreign policies. Because many of those people, they're thinking that, okay, he's going to go away after 3.5 years. but we are going to be here, and they want to have some kind of continuity to that policy. I will be doing a full-fledged show probably tonight on Donald Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia or UAE in Qatar, and so do come back, and we will discuss that a bit more detail, Rohit. Milan, hello from Nepal. Hello to you. Oh my God, I keep thinking one of these shows I have to do. I have a very beautiful Nepalese cap. I'm going to wear that for one of these shows because there are so many Nepalese people who are now watching Conversations. We know where you are coming from. Okay, fine, good. What is all those funny comments? Saif, hope all the gifts from favors newfound influence of GCC states perhaps start turning the tide. I really don't know whether the $400 million plane is going to change Donald Trump's priorities. Donald Trump is going to pursue what he wants to pursue. And if they align with your interests, great. If they don't, then I don't know. I'm not very sure whether Donald Trump is tempted by that much money to just go, because most of the investments that he's inviting are for the United States. I guess maybe his family is involved in part of it. Some investments will be in private sector, and so people like Jared Kushner may be involved in running some of those funds. I don't understand I don't follow very closely what happens with the money. It is definitely clear that the money is talking very loudly in the Middle East at the moment. Yes, Saxena, that is true. I mean, the amount of gifts Donald Trump gave to Israel in the first term were enormous. Moving the capital, allowing him to, I think, annex Golan Heights, etc. Yes, Donald Trump did a lot of favors to Netanyahu and to Israel. Israel should not forget that. Rohit Narayan, thank you everybody for watching. And like I said before, that this channel is now eligible to get super thanks and super stickers and etc. So don't feel shy. So if you want to send super thanks towards me, you're most welcome to do that. And then I look forward to seeing you guys soon. Bye.